So in this video, we're gonna continue from the last video where we were exploring Redfin and how to search for listings and kind of how to find comparable sold comps and try to organize it into a spreadsheet, and also just go over some techniques in adjusting for property specific kind of adjustments to get a valuation for the properties that you may be bidding on. So we had our spreadsheet, and in this spreadsheet, we had all the different fields that we thought were important to populate based on the comp set that we're looking at. So let's just, and again, Redfin is not the best tool to do this because it doesn't really allow you to download a bunch of different comps at one time. But what you could also do if you have an agent is to ask them to download a list for you from the MLS directly, and it will just output something like this where it's all organized by address, and it has all the fields populated automatically, and then you can just do your analysis. But if you don't have that option, or if you just want to kind of have some independence in doing this analysis, let's just populate a couple of these based on the information in Redfin. So the MLS number is going to be found right here. So it has the MLS listing number. Okay, the list date. So we can see the list date. Okay, so you can see the information here, February 23rd, and it's sold on February 23rd. So this might have been some kind of insider deal where they just put this listing on to record the sale, but it was sold off market, meaning that within the brokerage kind of whoever the listing agent was found a buyer directly and just didn't even list it. So so let's just put these dates in. So usually there will be a gap between these two times. In this case, it was a little odd. So this is actually not on the market for any days because basically the days on the market, you could just do this status date minus the list date. That's kind of the formula. But in this case, since it was just this weird kind of listing, it's 0. And again, this is only for sold comps because for active and pending, it's not yet closed. So you actually don't have this updated date when it actually closed. Um, but yeah, actually, I'll show you how to do days on the market for active and pending. We'll do one of those next. Okay, so the address for this one is here. This is in Fremont. The zip code is 94539. So the list price, again, it was listed for 820. It sold for 820. Again, this was kind of an odd situation. Let's see if we can find. Okay, so so this is an old kind of this is in the past for this property, but you can see here that it's listed for 700, but it's sold for 715. So you can see that there's a difference between the list price and the sold price in this example. But in this case, in the most recent sale, the list and the sold price are the same. Let's just clean up the formatting a little bit. Okay, and this is actually condo. So let's make sure we get the building type right. Square footage, 1170. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with no partial bathroom. Garage space, I think we saw down here. There's one garage space. It was built in 1986. And then the lot square footage, it's listed as something. Okay, actually there is no lot size that we see here. So, and that's correct because it's a condo. Okay, so now we have entered this sold comp into our spreadsheet. So now let's look at an active listing. Okay, so let's look at this one, 77 Shiniko Common. So it's the same information. We have the MLS number, and again, it's listed here. We have the list date here, February 24th, 2022, and the list price is 849,000. The status is active. We're not going to put a status date because we have the list date, and since this is an active listing, it hasn't updated in status yet. And then the days on the market is basically today's date minus the list date. So it told us it already. We see time on Redfin is 20 days. I would actually not even include this for an active listing because it's going to change every day. I would only include days on the market for a sold comp. So let's just change, let's just pretend that this was actually listed on the 13th. So you see here that it was on the market for 10 days. This is, I kind of changed the number. But, if we assume that it was listed on 213 and then it closed, it sold on 223, it was on the market for 10 days basically. Okay, and the address, it's listed for 849,000. And so it hasn't sold yet, so there is no sale price. We would just leave this blank. It is the same square footage and the same layout. It also has a one car garage. It was built around the same time, 1 year later in 1987. And it does have a lot size listed here, but just using common sense, we kind of know that a condo doesn't have a lot. And so we're just going to leave it at 0. And so you would basically go through the list of comp properties and populate this and check back. If you're just kind of learning about your market, you would just continue to add properties to this list and build it up. One thing to mention is that right now the filter is pretty tight, and we're actually not getting that many properties. But if we got rid of, for example, the 3 bedroom, 2 bath, let's see what happens. No, it looks like that didn't do too much for us. Basically, I guess my point is that if you're looking for comps, especially sold comps, and you're not getting that many results, you can loosen up your filters. And even though, for example, let's say we had another property here, 75 Shiniko Common, and it was 1,000 square feet, and it was a 3 bedroom, 1 bath. That's okay. We can still use that. And because what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna show you a appraisal to kind of give you a sense of this, but we're gonna take all these similar properties and standardize them in order to get to a final value. So let's look at an appraisal, and it will give you kind of a sense of how to do it. We're gonna see the appraisal in a kind of PDF and in a more like kind of formalized table, but you can essentially do the same thing in this spreadsheet. So let's look at the appraisal. Okay, so let's explain what's going on in this appraisal report. So this appraisal report is for this subject property. So we see the subject property here. Here's the address. Okay. Um, the lot is this large. The gross living area is this large. This is the bedroom, bathroom count here. And there are 3 comparable sales. So these are already sold properties that are in the area, are of similar type, and are determined to have been similar enough to our subject property to be included as a comparable sale. And so you see here the sale price. Our subject property, which is not yet sold yet, doesn't have one, but these others do. So these have already been sold, and these are the prices that they were sold at. And so let's just walk through each of these different rows to understand what they are. So the sale price divided by the gross living area. This is the price per square foot. So all they did was take this 336 and divided by the gross living area. So in this case, for comp 1, it was 17,701. For comp 2, they took this number here and divided by this number is 16,400. Sorry, 1,640. And then for comp 3, they took this and then they divided by this 2,416. And that's how they got these 3 numbers here. So it also talks about the just some basic information on the listings for each of these comps. So this was on the market for 16 days. This was on the market for much longer, 122 days, and this one sold really quick, also just like the first one in 8 days. And of course, ours is not sold yet, so and it's not listed. This was actually for a mortgage refinance, so that's why it's not. There's no MLS number. Okay, so sales or financing. So this is like arm's length transaction, meaning it was just sold to an unknown third party. So it was just a regular sale. That's what this arm's length is indicating. Concessions. So it's talking about what type of mortgage. So is it conventional mortgage? And if, for example, if it's sold for 345,000, but the seller gave a credit for repairs of 20,000, for example, then the sale price was actually lower. It was actually, only 325,000. So that's what this concession is, because it wants to kind of find the true price that the property is sold for. So if there's any concessions given, that's kind of what is indicated here. So it looks like these were just conventional mortgages, no concessions, and so we can use this value. Okay, date of sale and time. I'm not entirely sure what these are, but I would maybe assume, just looking at it, that C stands for the contract date, meaning when the property got into contract and became pending, and then S stands for when it actually closed, the sale date. So that's what I would kind of assume these dates are. And then location. So it looks like NRES probably stands for just normal residential, and so all three of these are just in normal residential neighborhoods. Fee simple, so this is not super important. This is just a technical kind of thing. You're For houses that you're gonna buy, you're typically gonna have sold comps that are just fee simple transfers, meaning just regular sales. And then the site, so this is the lot size. So you can see that this comp one has actually the exact same lot size, and number three is slightly bigger. Number two is slightly smaller. So the view. So this is important eh, because there is an adjustment, that you may have to make. And this property happens to be sitting on a hill and actually has a view of the bay. This is in San Pablo, which is in kind of north of Berkeley, California. And so from the backyard, you can see the bay. So this actually has a nice view. It looks like Comp 1 also has a nice view or a similar view. Comp 2 does not. It's just looking at a normal neighborhood, which is why this adjustment is happening. So you can see also, we can look at the lot size too. There's an adjustment here. So what this positive adjustment is basically saying this this number here is not adjusting for, or it's not including a view. Okay, so our subject property has a view. So if number two also had a view, it would be worth more, which is why they're adding this 25,000. So let's say everything else about comp 2 was the same as our subject property, except that comp 2 has no view and our subject property does. All else equal, our property is going to sell for more because of the view. So that's what this addition is trying to do. It's trying to bring the comparable sale up to the same standard as the subject property. And that's why it's adding 25,000. That's an estimate of how much the view is worth to a buyer. Okay? And it could even be more than 25,000. But in this case, the appraiser, using their judgment, is saying that the view that the subject property gets that comp 2 does not have is worth 25,000, which is why it's adding it. In this case, we see a negative adjustment because comp 3 has a lot that is bigger, and so it's going to have sold for an extra amount compared to the subject property, which has a smaller lot. So that's why, in order to adjust comp 3, you have to subtract a certain amount to get the lot sizes to be jiving with each other between the subject property and this one, which has a larger one. So basically, if a comp has something superior to the subject property, it's going to have a negative adjustment. In this case, it had a larger lot. If the subject property has something that's superior to the comp, you're going to have a positive adjustment. So that's why this comp 2, because the subject property has a superior view, you're going to have to adjust positively comp 2 to adjust for that. So that's kind of the process of adjusting. And so you can see there's other elements of adjustments that are happening. So let's look at, let's just continue going down the list. So design, it looks like they all have similar designs. That's why there's no adjustment. Quality of construction. There's some scale that the appraiser uses, so it looks like Q4. These are all Q4 quality construction. Actual age. They're by the appraiser's estimate close enough in age to not require a adjustment. But if this was 73 years old and there was a house that was a comp that was only 10 years old, there would probably be a significant adjustment for that, in that the comparable sale would have to have had a negative adjustment if it was much newer. Okay, so condition. So again, this is some scale that the appraisers use. So it looks like comparable sale 2 was in a better condition than our subject property, which is why there's a negative adjustment. To basically bring C3 down to C4, you're subtracting $20,000 because our subject property was C4. Room count. So you can see here that the subject property has more bathrooms, which is why they're giving a positive adjustment on this. And in this case, it looks like there's a negative adjustment because there's an extra half bathroom, it looks like, in comparable sale 2. And then same thing with this, there's an extra bathroom, which is why this property in this case is superior to the subject property, which is why it's adjusted downwards. And then for size, this is going to be a big adjustment because people pay more for larger houses. So again, we see that the subject property is superior to this comp 1, which is why there's a big adjustment. It's much bigger. Same thing with comp 2. Our subject property is much bigger. But comp 3 is around the same square footage, so there's no adjustment for that. So basement, they all have no basement. Functional utility, it looks like they're all average. Heating and cooling, energy efficiency, garage. So this has a 1-car garage and a 1-car driveway, which is what that stands for. Looks like there's some slight difference, but it does have a garage and also 1-car driveway. And this one, it looks like it just has a driveway. There's no garage, which is why there's a positive adjustment to account for the fact that our subject property has a garage and this one doesn't. And so after all these adjustments, you have a net adjustment, and then you get to a final value where you take the original price that it sold for. And in this case, you're adding 39,000, which was kind of the net adjustment. You have all these different things. When you add them or subtract them all together, you get a net result of 39,000. And so, now you have an adjusted sale price based on all these different factors for these 3 sale comps. And basically what the appraiser does is average these together to get a value, an estimated value of the subject property. So let's just summarize what the key features of these adjustments are. You're going to want to adjust for the lot size, the size of the house, the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, the quality of construction, the age of the property, the condition of the property, views, if a property has a view versus doesn't have a view. I would also say pool. So again, I kind of skipped over that, but pool, the landscaping, it looks like these all had similar landscaping. The garage, these are kind of the major things that you want to adjust for when comparing different properties together. And again, just to also summarize, if the comp property is inferior in any of these criteria, then you're going to add value to the comp. If the comp is superior compared to the subject property, you're going to subtract. If you can remember that, it'll be easy. And you can think about it like the fact that if your comp property has something that your subject doesn't, then you're going to want to subtract to adjust for that. And if your subject property has something that your comp property doesn't, then you're going to have to add value to the comp property to adjust. So it takes some practice to kind of get used to the directionality of this stuff, but just review this video, look at the direction of this. You can look at this one has a bay view, this one doesn't. It's a positive adjustment, and just kind of try to make sense of it in your head like that. Okay, and so let's just quickly just do this same thing in the spreadsheet. I have some comps here that I just have set up so that we can maybe do this in a little quicker manner. So one thing you can first do is just get the price per square foot. And so for the first three, since there's no um, sale price yet, because they're, as we can see here, they're still pending, I'm just going to use the list price divided by the square footage. And then for the sold comps, I use the sale price divided by the square footage. So this is just the raw dollars per square foot. Now that we have a per square foot number, let's not worry about the size difference. Okay, let's just do like let's say this one had a pool while our subject property didn't. So we're gonna have to do a negative adjustment. So let's just say negative 10,000 for that, and then let's just do one for condition. I'm just gonna do a couple of these. I won't go through the full analysis. Bed bath view, and let's say nuisance. So in this case, Turquoise Street, which is this comp, had a pool, but our subject property did not. So we're going to subtract. Let's say Turquoise Street was in worse condition than our property. Let's say our property is kind of redone and it looks like the kitchen is redone and all that. And Turquoise Street was kind of the original stuff. And so that's going to be a big adjustment. So let's call that like $50,000. So Turquoise Street would have sold for $50,000 more had it been in better condition, which is why we're adjusting for it here. Bed Bath, let's say they're the same. Yeah, let's just say they're the same. No adjustment. View, no adjustment. But let's say our property, the subject property, is on a busy road, while Turquoise Street was not. So Turquoise Street is superior, and so in that case, we're gonna have to adjust it downwards. And let's say that's worth $15,000. Okay, so in this case, for condition, our property, subject property, was superior, but it was inferior on in the fact that it does not have a pool and that it's on a busy road. So we have to adjust downwards for that. Okay, so now when we net all this together, just gonna add all these up. Okay, so it's a positive $25,000 adjustment. So then let's just do this. We add this plus our adjustment, and that's our kind of adjusted sale price. And then now let's do the per square foot. So now we're going to adjust for the size of the property. I think this is maybe the most efficient way to do it. Okay, so, and let's just say, we did, this one, when we did all the adjustments for 55, I'm just going to make these numbers up. Okay, so now we have all these comps. Let's just take an average. Okay, so now we have this average per square foot price, and let's say our subject property is 1,500 square feet. So now we just multiply 1,500 square feet times $459 per square foot. Sorry, it's multiplied. And so this is our estimated value based on the comps. So that's kind of how to use the comps, adjust. And I didn't do all the adjustments, for garage and year built and lot size. So you would add all these, or just have some way of adjusting for all that stuff, and then you can get a per square foot price, and then you can average them, and then multiply by the size of your property, and you get a comp value. So oftentimes this is a lot of work to do, but you will develop a sense of doing this over time, and you can do it much more quickly and get a sense of the general value of your property, especially if you keep your list updated, you're looking at trends. You'll have a really good sense of the value of properties, and necessarily won't have to go through the nitty gritty details of doing this. You can just kind of ballpark stuff and you'll be pretty close. So, but just wanted to lay out, kind of the entire process, because having a framework of these adjustments and how it works in your mind is, I think, really important as you work on your skill of valuing real estate.